Do we have anyone else? We got Commissioner Fortune absent, right? Okay. Jason, are we ready? Okay. I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners special meeting for Wednesday, October 27, 21 to order. Clerk, could we please have roll call?
11 present, 1 absent. 1 absent, sorry.
11 present, 1 absent. Please note that Commissioner Fortune is absent from tonight and excused. We'll move on to the prayer and the pledge. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bowl. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to any items not addressed on the agenda. We do have one. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, in accordance with provisions of Section 6 of Rule 6 of the Rules of Business and of the Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver Bowl, State of Montana, the Council hereby finds that an emergency condition exists, which requires that the Council rules be suspended to allow communication number 2021-527 to be added to the agenda of this special regular meeting of Council. The reason for the suspension is as follows. This communication is from County Deputy Attorney Mike Clegg requesting that the Council authorize the Butte-Silver Bowl DUI and Veterans Treatment Courts to each apply for a grant from the Montana Supreme Court Judicial Branch and the Montana Treatment Court Advisory Committee. He was not advised until this week, and there is a deadline for submission of the grant, which has to occur prior to our next regular meeting. So at this time, I would move to approve the suspension of the rules to consider placing communication 2021-527 on tonight's agenda special regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-527 on tonight's special meeting agenda. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yeas, 0 nay.
11 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. I'd like to call for any comment on any item that is on tonight's special meeting event agenda tonight. Is there any public comment on? Please come forward, state your name and your address. And this is only for the special meeting tonight, not the regular meeting.
We have 2 meetings
We
tonight.
have 2 different meetings. This is a special one. So I think you probably are going to comment. You can go ahead and tell us which one you're going to talk on. Okay. So it'll be, Madam Chair will be running the second meeting, and you'll have an opportunity at that time. Okay. Thank you. It's a little confusing tonight because we added this on. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to a call for a special meeting. J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, is calling for a special meeting of the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners for Wednesday, October 27, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. for the Committee of the Whole meeting in the Council Chambers, Room 312. The purpose of this meeting will be requesting authorization for Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher to sign CDBG housing application related to the development of affordable housing at the Phoenix Building, which has a deadline of October 28, 2021. So we'll move on to communication. Section 1, communications. We have communication number 2021-526, Karen Burns, Development Director requesting Council Commissioners authorization for Chief Executive Gallagher to sign CBG housing application related to the development of affordable housing at the Phoenix Building. We'll have Director Burns, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive and members of council. I appreciate your allowing for us to have this special meeting tonight for us to check all the boxes in order to submit this grant application. It's been a very busy grant season. I do apologize for the rush, but we'd love to have your approval for the Chief Executive to sign this grant application, your approval to submit it. This is for affordable housing to be developed at the Phoenix Building on 2 stories of, there would be 15 total units. We have completed a PAR on this project, which is a preliminary architectural report. That was completed a couple of years ago. We submitted for a round of funding and were unsuccessful. So this is our second attempt at funding. We've been encouraged by the Department of Commerce to apply for this. It is an eligible cost under the housing program, and those funds do not require match. And they have raised the ceiling for these funds to $600,000 per application, and prior to that it was $450,000 for an application. So we will be applying for the full amount, and we will submit this grant application by end of business tomorrow, if approved by this body. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions for Karen? Seeing none, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to concur with Communication 2021-526 and place it on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file. Anything on the question? Could Commissioners please vote? And then would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yeas, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to communication number 2021-527. Communication is from Deputy County Attorney Mike Clegg requesting the council authorize Butte-Silver Bowl, DUI, and Veterans Treatment Courts to each apply for a grant from the Montana Supreme Court Judicial Branch and the Montana Treatment Court Advisory Committee. Mr. Clegg was not advised of these grant opportunities until this week. The deadline for submission of the grant was prior to this. Commissioner, we've already kind of talked through this. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to concur with Communication 2021-527 and place it on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file. Anything on the question? Could Commissioners please vote? Would anyone like to change the vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to Section 2, ordinances and resolutions, emergency suspension of the rules for final passage. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing Council Resolution 2021-53 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules and Order of Business of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Anything on the question? Could Commissioners please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yeas, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 2021-53. Clerk, please read the caption.
Resolution number 2021-53, a resolution authorizing the submittal of a community development block grant for the purpose of financial assistance for Phoenix building improvements in accordance with the procedures of the Butte-Silver Municipal Code and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to place Council Resolution 2021-53 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 2021-53 on final reading. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 1 nay.
10 yea, 1 nay, motion passes. This concludes our special meeting for Wednesday, October 27, 2021. I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to
Changing the... Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting agenda for Wednesday, October 27, 2021. Could I have roll call, please? Oh, did we check in? That might help. Everyone, please check in. Now I'd like to have roll call. Thank you.
Mankins.
10 present, 1 presiding.
Thank you. It looks like Commissioner Fortune is still not here, so we'll say these formally absent. All right, we will forego the prayer and the pledge. We've already had that this evening. So we're moving on to public comment on any items that are on tonight's agenda. If anybody would like to speak on any item on tonight's agenda, come on up to the microphone and please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Trudy Healy. I live at 111 West Iron Street. I'm speaking tonight as a follow-up to the September 22nd Council of Commissioners meeting regarding the built-above abandoned vehicles that have left my neighborhood a dangerous place. I have been speaking directly to the DEQ Junk Vehicle Division in Helena, specifically Brady Christensen. Most of my comments will be read as the questions I have asked Mr. Christensen on October 13th, October 20th, and today. On September 22nd, Commissioner O'Neill asked why we had only one contract with a single provider for the storage of junk and abandoned vehicles. There are in fact other towing companies. The City County of Butte signed a contract with the Butte-Silver Wrecking Association date July 1st, 2015. I contacted 2 towing companies that belong to the association in order to find out how the process worked. The members pay $20 a month to be part of the association. One wrecker said he was currently being paid $100 a tow. He stated that a fare rotation was not being used in regards to abandoned vehicles. When he did tow a vehicle, he was instructed by the undersheriff to tow directly to Red Wrecker. If Red Wrecker was full, he had to store the abandoned vehicle in his own lot. He was compensated nothing for storage nor for the second tow to Red Wrecker when he got the call that Red Wrecker had room. Nothing for miles on abandoned vehicle tows. Wrecker number 2 states he was called a majority of the time to tow junk vehicles to Pacific. He was only paid $75 a tow until August 8, 2020 for junk vehicles. He was being paid $100 to tow abandoned vehicles to Red Wrecker. If he had to store the vehicles, he was not compensated for that. He also was not paid for mileage. Question to DEQ, Brady Christensen. Can a junkyard owned by a private entity store state abandoned vehicles in their lots? Mr. Christensen, all abandoned vehicles belonging to the state of Montana must be kept separate with a barrier from the private lot's own personal junk vehicles. Only after the sheriff releases abandoned vehicles can it then be added to a private lot. On Friday, October 15th, 2021, I hand-delivered an updated copy of the current contract between the Towing Association and the City County of Butte dated March 25th, 2020. In it, it shows that an increase in pay from 75 to now 125 was implemented. Neither of these companies had been notified of the increase and were stunned they hadn't been compensated fairly. According to the DEQ ARM 17.50.213, the reimbursement rate for tow truck operators went from 100 to 125 in November 2019 for abandoned vehicles. My question to the DEQ, specific to what is happening to the elderly and disabled citizens in my neighborhood. If an individual abandons his vehicles on a homeowner's property, can the homeowner have the junk vehicle or abandoned vehicle removed by the city? Mr. Christensen's answer was yes. After 5 days, the homeowner can contact the police and the vehicles can be ticketed. The vehicles now fall under the same guidelines for removal as the vehicles abandoned on the street. If the vehicle is valued at $500 or less in the Kelly Blue Book, it can be taken to Pacific for crushing as defined as a junk vehicle. Specific to citizens witnessing this occurrence, a citizen calls in an abandoned vehicle. The tow company shows up after the allotted time to remove the vehicle. A person runs over and states they were just about to remove the vehicle, at which time the individual tows it around the corner and parks the junk vehicle in the alley. Question, does an individual claiming to own an abandoned vehicle that is about to be towed have to prove ownership with registration and or copy of receipt? Mr. Christensen, yes, they have to prove ownership. So,
Thank you.
that's the end. Thank you.
Any other public comment on any item that's occurring on tonight's agenda? Just give us your name and address, please, for the record.
Okay, my name is Roberta Roberts. I live at 1111 West Galena. I am speaking on the city-county motor vehicle graveyard. In regards to Commissioner Shea's question to Sheriff Lester, asking if Butte-Silver could build its own graveyard vehicle storage. Answer, per DEQ Representative Mr. Christensen, Butte County City already has its own vehicle graveyard. It is located in Rocker. The graveyard is currently licensed through the state. It is not being used currently as Butte City and County needs to install security measures to protect us from liability of injury that could occur if an individual trespasses. You then, if it has been years since anyone has researched current methods that are now available to secure the graveyard, can we readdress this issue in order to utilize the graveyard in Rocker? And then the Montana Freedom of Information, I am requesting a copy of the contract between the city and county and Butte-Silver and Red Wrecker, whom Sheriff Lester says is the sole junkyard storing the abandoned vehicles. I am requesting a copy of the contract between the Butte Towing Association and Butte City County Junk Vehicle Program as to verify the amount that each wrecker has been reimbursed. The two wreckers were not given or have received a copy of it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment on any item on tonight's agenda? Okay, going once. Thank you. So I'm up to the report of the chair. Just a couple of things. I was very happy to hear Commissioner Mankins told me that SARTA meeting, I guess they approved $125,000 to Habitat for Humanity to help build 12 houses on the north side of Iron Street. And his opinion, and it would be mine as well, is it could help to eliminate some of the blight in the future in that area. So I thank you for that information, Commissioner Mankin. And then just on a housekeeping note, business cards are available. If anybody would like to have business cards, commissioners, just see Barb. She will take care of the paperwork, and we will get you some business cards with our new logo on them. The ones I have are pretty old, but so just call Barb and she'll take care of the details for you, okay? All right, moving on, we have our Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. The item we have to begin with is our bid opening, communication number 2021-517. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to open proposals for the 2022 Economic Mill Levy Fund at the Council of Commissioners meeting on Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. And do we have proof of publication, County Attorney?
Madam Chair, there is proof of publication. It does appear to be in order.
Thank you. Okay. The floor is yours. Director
Okay.
Burns.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure how many are in. We had the submissions done electronically, so they're not in envelopes that need to slice open. We went to an electronic submission last year with COVID, so to minimize contact and things like that. So I have the electronic submissions. Barb has printed those out. They are here in this purple folder. I can open the purple folder very ceremoniously and read aloud each one of the
Okay.
submissions if
County
that
Attorney
suits the
Joyce, I'm
council.
sure that that is vetted by you and that is considered official. Okay, thank you. Go continue, Director Burns.
Thank you so much. The first proposal is from Alpha Technology, and it's for $10,000. I think that's all we need to say, right? Alpha Technology of Butte-Silver. The second submission is from the Mother Lode Theater, and they are requesting $4,000. We have a request from MPGA Jim Ward, and the request is for $30,000. We have a request from the Mile High Little League, Ron Godbout, and the request is for $68,000. A request from the Dumas Brothel. The owner is David Prince from Forsyth, Montana, for $25,000. The Montana Gaelic Cultural Society for $3,500, $3,500. The Spirit of Columbia Gardens Carousel, for $7,675. $7,675. The Urban Forest Board, no dollar amount associated with this request. I apologize. Thank you. It may be in support of a proposal, I'm just making an assumption here, that's behind it from Montana Main Street, Uptown Butte for $7,500, for $7,500, and that's related to trees. The Butte Literacy Program, $7,800. The next request is from Robert Edwards, $28,800. The next request is called Restoration of Butte's Oldest Historic Neighborhood, Red, White, and Butte, $1,700. Doesn't look like it.
I believe it's a Cabbage Patch project.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I apologize, I want to make sure I said the right number. It's 17,000, thank you, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
And the last request is from Advantage Butte for $30,000.
Thank you, Director Burns. Does that complete our applications, I assume? Oh. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much. Could you restate the amount for Alpha Technologies? I thought you had said 10,000, but when I was looking at it, I saw 25,000.
The amount for Alpha Technologies is 10,000.
There was on the second page, there was a total amount requested Alpha Technologies that stated in bold there that stated 25,000.
Correct. The amount on the cover page is 10,000, so the committee will have to vet that.
Okay, Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Burns, could you refresh my memory? So the amounts are going to be awarded are both this year's and last year's? So it'll be,
No.
Ms. Burns.
Sorry, Chairman Shaw, Commissioner Sorich, the amount this year is $68,000.
okay, thank you.
Is that 68,000?
Yes,
Thank you.
68,000.
So I'm going to ask my vice chair to refer this to our Economic Development Committee. Commissioner Frederickson.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I will make a motion to refer this back to our Economic Development Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to refer these Economic Mill Levy Fund applications to the Economic Development Committee and await their response. Thank you. Okay, moving on to presentations. Item 1 is communication number 2021 I'm sorry? Oh, I guess we do. Sorry. All in favor of voting, say aye. Never mind. Okay, we do have a communication number 2021-504. We will move to refer these items to the Economic Development Committee and have them come back to this body with their response. We have a motion and a second. Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now, moving on to presentations. Item 1, communication number 2021-504. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council Commissioners' concurrence for time on the October 27, 21 Council meeting to present information on the Uptown Master Plan. Director Burns.
I think I should get a seat right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Shaw and members of council. So tonight we'll be having a presentation on our Uptown Master Plan progress. We've been having a series of public meetings over the past couple of days. Our consultants were in town and we held public meetings at noon on Zoom on Tuesday and then at 5:30 p.m. in the evening. We also had a URA board meeting and that morning, which was also a public meeting where they presented information on this. And so our consultants are going to present remotely. So they'll be here on your screen presenting the findings of our draft of the master plan. I do have hard copies. I do have electronic copies. And it is also on our Uptown Master Plan website, uptownbuttemasterplan.com. And it is in there in its entirety, so you can flip through it in the electronic version as well. And we are still taking comments. This is a draft plan. It isn't in perfect form yet, and we are still taking comments on all of the sections. We hope to have this plan wrapped up and in a final format by the end of the year, mid-December, hopefully. But I'll let our consultants give an overview of the plan, and then I understand that it's hard to ask questions when there's a remote sort of presentation going on, but I am here to answer questions. We have Paul Filicetti here from A&E Architects, who's representing part of the team that is working on this plan. So we're here to answer your questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. And just to reiterate, we cannot have a dialogue with the folks on the screen. We don't have WebEx capabilities in this room, so I will defer to those that are present. And thank you for joining us, and we're ready to roll, Walker. Of course, he can't hear me because we can't talk, but.
Hi, this is Walker Christensen. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone. I will share my screen and we can get the presentation going. All right. Can you see the presentation on the screen? Looks good. Okay. So I'm Walker Christensen, and I'm with DHM Design, and we've been working on the Uptown Master Plan for quite a few months now, most of this year. I have Gabe Preston with me, and Paul Filicetti is also there in person. And so we're gonna go through the Draftmaster Plan for Uptown and kind of just give you a 10,000-foot view of it, the overall framework. We've had over 45 meetings, including public meetings, focus groups, steering committee, the Uptown Master Plan Association, so you can kind of see some of all the different categories that we've been looking at and getting a lot of the community's perspectives from different points of view. Some of the key issues that have come out of the community meetings are, making sure that we have clean and safe uptown. That's a foundational need. Having a place where we can have sidewalk cafes. You're really highlighting the historic buildings, and it's clean and safe, and people want to be in that space. The vacant buildings are also an issue, and so looking at the economic challenges of redeveloping some of those buildings, how can we reduce risks and increase returns for people who are looking at taking those on as a project. Preservation of Uptown's historic architectural resources is of utmost importance. Having projects like the archives, which is such a well-received project, and the community is really proud of it. These are the projects that we want to continue. Looking at pedestrian safety and walkability, that's very important. That came up a lot, and getting people out of their cars, calming down traffic, and having people walk around Uptown and visit the businesses and just enjoy the street more was a big goal of the community. Preserving the authentic character was also very important, from the small details to the larger facades and the overall fabric of the whole Uptown. And there's a lot of places where this is happening, where the BAMP trail has come in and it's weaved through the mining relics, and that really, I think, helps to preserve the authentic character. Just looking at the density of the architectural resources, and this is a drawing that I saw in the basement of the archives, and just really just thinking about the resources that you do have. There's, so many cities would be lucky to have just a couple of these buildings, but you have so many of them. So that's really an important piece of the overall fabric. What we looked at was really focusing on what we're calling the Uptown Core, which is the central business district. It's really the walkable area. And then also including the original mine yard. So you can see that is the area in red that we're looking at, but we're also looking at how everything ties in adjacently to the regional trails, to Montana Tech, to the schools and hospital, and the residential areas. The way the report is organized, and so when you get to review it, it's organized by our larger vision statements. And so we have 4 major vision statements. The first one is Uptown Butte, a clean, safe, walkable, and vibrant destination. And then we have recommendations under that. And so I think, we have 10 or 12 recommendations under that, and I'll just quickly go through some of those tonight. The second vision statement is Uptown Butte, Montana's premier urban core. So really, the goal is highly aspirational. We want Uptown to be Montana's premier urban core. The historic character is still there, the buildings are there, the infrastructure is there, and, we just need to improve occupancy and the vitality that once was there. We want to bring that back, and that's a lofty goal, but it's something that I think can definitely be accomplished. The integrity of the architectural resources of Uptown are key to economic revitalization of Butte. So preserving what is there and all of these things that everybody loves about Uptown is what's going to draw more people there. And it's really set up to be this place where, it's a very sustainable place to live and shop and work. The last one is tell the stories of Butte America. This is taking it to the next level of not just being about the physical buildings or the streetscape, but really telling about, the history and the people who have lived there. And that's another thing that just adds that another level of interest that will attract people. But, looking at wayfinding and public art and, how could maybe incorporating the Butte Anaconda National Historic Park as a national historic park with the Park Service, things like that. This is just an overall plan, kind of enlargement of the Uptown Core, and starting to look at intersections and potential for some park and plaza space, and converting the original mine yard into a full-time public park. Now I'll get into the first vision statement and some of the recommendations with that. For the clean and safe vision statement, our first recommendation is to establish a business improvement district, and that's a district that can help with events and maintenance. There's a lot of things that a business improvement district can do as part of your Uptown Core, looking at, potential for a welcome center. They can do a lot of things that aren't already done by Butte-Silver. Funding and implementing programs to improve safety. So there's already a walking patrol, but that's been pretty successful, and so that could be increased. Right now, that's not something that's funded, but the business improvement district might help fund that, where it could happen on Friday and Saturday nights when a lot more of the activity is happening. It can help with fund some additional snow removal. Everyone has to do snow removal, but if there was a way to pool resources and organize that, that might be a way to help keep even more of the sidewalks and streets open and keep access to businesses. So, there's a lot of things that can come out of that. Creating a lighting plan, really focusing on pedestrian lighting in the Uptown Core came up in almost all of our focus group meetings. So that was really important. And it's important because of safety, walkability, the activity and vibrancy. It's also important because this example of the Northwestern Energy Building, you know, they did a lot with the lighting. They did accent lighting on the building. They did pedestrian lighting that looks like historic fixtures. They have a nice storefront, places for people to sit, street trees. So they really put an emphasis on the streetscape and making that building friendly from the street. And if some of the beautiful historic buildings had this kind of accent lighting, I think people would want to walk around more at night, and I think it could be really magical. Improving the appearance of vacant buildings. So one thing that Butte is already doing is they have a mothball ordinance, and that helps to, you know, seal up, repair roofs. If you board up the windows, you can paint them to look like the actual windows, and that's what this is illustrating, is just how much better you can make the building look while also making it ready to be resold in the future. So preserving it so that it can be resold and it does not deteriorate. That's something that's already in place, and I think that's a program that's really going to be helpful and grow as the years go by. Improving pedestrian and bicycle safety is an important part of the clean and safe vision. And so we've shown you some of this before, but looking at curb extensions at some intersections, some key intersections where people gather, providing more pedestrian space where it's places you can extend the curb where there is no parking right now. Looking at special paving at crosswalks, so something that is a visual cue. It shortens the crosswalk space as well, adding the lighting, the ornamental lighting and flower pots, just creating a more friendly and safe streetscape. And so with those curb extensions, you know, you have to consider wintertime maintenance. And so the curves need to be smooth so that the snowplow can get through. They need to be well marked. You can even do some that are flush curbs so that the snowplow can go through. This is another spot that we looked at Broadway in Maine, and looking at the same kind of treatment. But in addition to the curb extensions and the crosswalks, we also looked at, you know, could we take the parking and make that an event space and like a plaza. So in the upper right corner, that's something where the blank wall might have a public art mural on it. There might be another place where music events could be held, or, you know, farmers market type weekend events, anything like that. But it could also still be parking in the week, so it could be a special event space. But I think, you know, for public health and vibrancy, having these outdoor spaces is really important. Another way to really enhance that safe walkability and authentic character is looking at, you know, are there some improvements we could do to some of the alleys? I know you did this already as a test on the Lizzie block, and, you know, there was a lot of successful things that happened with that, but simple things like lighting, public art, seating. I really like this alley because it already has the brick paving, it has the head frame in the background, and if you could tie some of your, you know, art and education into that, like with the mural that you see on the right side, you know, it brings all of those different levels. It accomplishes a lot of our different vision statements. Here's another alley behind the Quarry Brewing Company, and looking at you know, this is an alley where it's so tight you can't even drive a car in on the Montana Street side, but, you know, having some movable tables, it's a place that people already use, but just kind of formalizing that, but having a really flexible space that encourages people to more walkability. This is an overall map of, we looked at a few places where we might want to potentially have public parks and plazas in the future, looking at the original Mineyard as a full-time park, but in orange are some of the locations we looked at that could be potential plaza space. One of these is at Hamilton and Broadway, and we looked at if that could become a plaza with seating, and another place where, you know, the public could go out there for lunch. It has all the same characteristics of, you know, the beautiful architecture surrounding it. It's a more intimate space. It has art, and you can bring the trees and planting and lighting in as well, and do a lot with that. And also can operate in the wintertime and have nice, you know, events and Christmas gatherings. Looking at developing the original mine yard into a full-time public park. So that would need to be something that would need to have a conceptual design and then see what we could do there, but really, you know, not changing the function, just adding to it as a full-time park. You know how people really enjoy this space during events already. Having this closer to the residential areas that surround it and to Uptown, I think would be great for public health and sustainability and the livability of this area. And we really want to attract people to be living in the Uptown Core more, and this is one of the ways that you can do that. I'm going to turn it over to Gabe to talk about our second vision statement, which is, you know, creating Montana's premier urban core.
So this component of the master plan is really about sort of filling up Uptown, you know, trying to get the different strategies to improve the level of occupancy and activity in Uptown. You can switch slides. And so we did a lot of research about on sort of looking at what businesses are Uptown, and we did a survey of businesses of Uptown businesses. You know, we detected about 177 businesses in that study area that Walker showed. There are undoubtedly more and probably new ones since there definitely are new ones since we did that inventory. So there's quite a lot going on, and there's a lot of capacity in Butte to assist businesses at all phases, from, you know, people that just have they're entrepreneurs that have an idea, to businesses that are trying to grow. So, you know, you've got BLDC, you've got the URA to help with some of the property improvements. You've got the Chamber of Commerce, you got Main Street program, you have your local government, which is super supportive. So it's really a business friendly community as it is now, and there's a ton of energy. And that's one of the things that, you know, it has made this project so interesting for us, is that not only is it just an amazing place with all this amazing infrastructure in these buildings, but the people, at least at this particular time and place, are really charged up about it. So Nick, you can move to the next slide. You know, your zoning code and the general attitude in Butte is pretty open-minded in terms of what kinds of businesses can be Uptown. In fact, you know, if you read through the list in the zoning code, like most of that stuff, there's hardly anything that you would want that you wouldn't want in Uptown. So it's real flexible, but we did identify some things that we could definitely use more of through our inventory and our survey work. So one of the things is just more retail and shopping. And most of the businesses agreed with this. Part of the reason that we want more retail and shopping, you know, especially sort of fun retail and shopping, is because tourists, both your in-state and your out-of-state tourists, love to shop, and it's a primary activity. The local, you can switch slides. One of the things about Uptown is that there's all this useful retail and these useful services, and also, like, really important, you know, you got your local government services and these really important social services and medical services Uptown. So it's a very useful place. And you know, we were joking around after the meeting last night, like Durango, our hometown, there's almost nothing useful downtown. And people like lament that. And so that's a real strength of Uptown, and we want to continue that. And actually, when we asked the businesses what more businesses they thought they wanted to, you know, a lot of them chose grocery market. And then let's also continue to build the entertainment and activity scene. And some of this can be public, you know, outside for sure, and publicly sponsored, but certainly business opportunities. And so we peeked in to Montana Acts last night, and that looked like a lot of fun. And that's like completely 100% on the right track. And then we could get more ambitious using some of the bigger spaces to do things like trampoline parks, and, skate, on the right is a skate ramp inside of a church. So there are spaces that are so big that we could get pretty creative with it. And this is all layered on top of the amazing entertainment, live performance venues that you have in Butte. So we want to sort of add to that and bring some more active and fun things uptown, but also not forget about that core strength of like, there are useful things that you can get in uptown for day-to-day life. There are essentials there. So we really, we think a lot about how in this study of how to market those buildings to improve occupancy. And the target markets are, this is a different kind of marketing than you would think of for the visitors. The target markets for getting those buildings occupied are sort of, for one thing, the business owners that own their buildings, a majority of those buildings are not completely occupied. So that's like an A1 target market to communicate with about improving occupancy in uptown. And there are businesses in Butte that kind of belong uptown. So as we start to improve it and make it a better place, like we want to attract some of those businesses that would better be in uptown to uptown. And then there's, potentially some soft recruitment that goes on where we look at businesses in other places that can have a replicable business model and try and entice them to open a branch or to even move their business to uptown. And then there are entrepreneurs. And so we know what, BLDC knows what to do with entrepreneurs, people that have ideas. But there's also an element that we talk about in the master plan of marketing uptown as a place for the customers of the businesses in uptown, right? So we want to do, we have some strategies for how to do that. And occupancy is definitely improving in Butte. The level of activity is increasing all the time. And so, for example, there's one of the ideas that would really sort of give a boost to the level of activity is the proposed praxis center, because that's going to bring in people, for weeks at a time, months at a time, that are going to be uptown and using uptown. So it's on the rise, and that's the key. The key to becoming to reestablishing uptown as the premier urban core is to have more people, and part of that is housing. And really with housing, all we have to do is sort of continue what was done in the past, continue those density levels, utilize what's there, and sort of mimic that. We don't have to reinvent the land use patterns. They're there. We just need to improve the occupancy.
With that, I think we're going to try and turn it over to Paul Filicetti, who's there in person.
All right, thank you,
and
Walker.
See if he can
Welcome, Paul.
go over the next vision statement.
Okay, thank you. So this is chapter 4, and dealing with, my name's Paul Filicetti, architect with A&E Architects, in dealing with the integrity of architecture in Uptown. And next slide, please. I don't know if he can hear me.
Next slide, please.
So the chapter 4 has several issues that we talk about. One is marketing Uptown to promote the National Historic Landmark District, really kind of focusing energy on that idea that the area is part of a National Historic Landmark District, and educating people on what that means. The impact of that historic preservation is being the key component within that. Next slide. A lot of that hinges on this idea of educational output, education, and then specifically looking at an area which was mentioned earlier, which we call the Uptown Core. You can see it there in the kind of shaded area, bottom left corner. Not to suggest that an area in Uptown is better than, or areas outside of Uptown are less than what the NHL is all about, but to focus energies on the Uptown as it is the focal point of city and county government. It's the focus of what Butte is, what Butte became, and what Butte will be, where all the architecture is and where all the design is for what we're now diving into here. And our next recommendation is design guidelines. Looking at the architecture, whether it's form-based design, that is using architecture that's already built here as a means to develop new architecture. So we'd be looking at renovation, adaptive reuse, preservation, new construction, additions to historic buildings, anything that impacts the buildings within the area of the Uptown Core, develop some design guidelines around that. It would help developers, property owners understand the level of integrity that we want to achieve, maintain, and care for in Uptown. These, just to point out in these two buildings as well, color and brick materials, the materials that are used in Uptown are so characteristic of specifically Butte. And I think that it's hard to deny that, and definitely be something that would be integrated as a component of the design guidelines. So we talked about that idea of preserving the integrity of Uptown. Integrity is based within Secretary of Interior standards, which is part of the current historic preservation ordinance here in Butte. So utilizing that and expanding on that idea is part of the design guideline process. Developing a historic preservation website. We have talked about this. A lot of people talked about the idea or questioned the idea of like, there's really no place to go where we can find out information. A landing page, a point of contact that we can go to, and just as out of curiosity, find out things that are going on, either in policy within Butte, for zoning, whatever the process is, but identifying a website that is a landing page, a home base, that answers a lot of questions, directs questions, whether it's events or information about the design guidelines, information about Uptown, any sort of landing page that's a frequently asked question page, information, point of contact, just a really powerful location that people can go to that supplies them information. Identifying, as another thing we identified was this idea that came up in several groups, that a lot of the public information, which is all public information, is considered kind of hidden from people in Butte. So developing some sort of a map, a basic map sort of process that will allow people to have access to, using their smartphones or computers, access to a lot of the information that's in the National Historic Landmark District about properties in the areas. In addition, we heard that and Walker kind of mentioned this in the touch point of the mothballing and window, dealing with the windows, the idea of looking at 2 or 3 buildings within Uptown, buildings or properties for that matter, within Uptown, and focusing attention on those, whether it's for resale or repair, whatever we can do to focus energy on that building in hopes of either preservation, restoration, or resale to someone who has interest. The next one is identifying programs for economic incentive. This is a big one. Historic preservation, it always comes down to money, how much money is out there. Walker introduced the idea of the Business Improvement District, the bid being a place where it would be the home of the organization that would look to and keep track of potentially funding sources that are available to developers, property owners for preservation and restoration, adaptive reuse of properties, as well as additions, compliance with historic preservation guidelines, anything that would be kind of above and beyond, if you will, a standard development or repair of a building. So it's kind of the carrot and stick. We give, the carrot is this, we're going to provide funding means or provide an organization that is available to chasing down funding, and the stick is something else that perhaps it is in the overlay. But so that's kind of chapter 4. I encourage you all to take a look at it, and I'll turn it back over to Walker and Gabe.
All right, thanks, Paul. All right, I'm going to take you through the last chapter of the report, the final vision chapter, and that's telling the stories of Butte America. First The important piece of this is that we need to get people to Uptown, welcome them when they arrive, and show them what Uptown has to offer. And one of the big ways we can do that is by developing a wayfinding plan. And so we need to pull people off the interstate, and we need to kind of mark Uptown so that they know what the Uptown Core is. One of the main intersections that we look at and one of the key gateways into Uptown is on Montana Street. And so this is the area where we have about 100-foot right-of-way. There's like an 80-foot pedestrian crossing distance, which when we were there yesterday, we crossed there, and it's pretty difficult to get across there. But there's ways that we can mitigate that and improve walkability and comfort for people using the Uptown area. There's ways that we can capture back that pedestrian space and use it for sidewalk cafes. In this artistic rendering, this is a concept of what it could be. There might be a potential for a gateway or a median, and the crossing distance can go down from 80 feet to 30 feet. There's a middle pedestrian refuge that people can use. So all of those things, you can see all the different layers of, providing more space for a business to use, making the entrance look nicer, marking that you're entering the Uptown Core. We want you to get out and walk around. So this could be a really important way to accomplish a lot of our goals again. So another thing that we looked at was developing an Uptown Core Welcome Center. So, once we get people here, we need to show that there's so many resources, there's so many amazing historic resources and stories that we want to tell. So having a welcome center that could be something that is, occupies a vacant historic space that's there currently, or maybe it's something that's at the original mine yard, but giving people a launching point for exploring Uptown. Another thing that goes along with that we've seen in other communities are ambassadors. So having an Uptown ambassador, people that are walking around Uptown that can help tourists, direct them to restaurants and tell them if special events are going on, I think has worked really well and been valuable for other communities. And these are things that the Business Improvement District can help with. Supporting the development of the Butte-Anaconda National Historic Park. We have had presentations from the National Park Conservation Association, and they've talked about, the potential for the historic district to become a historic park. And that would be something more like Harper's Ferry. There's a lot of historic resources in one place, and there's a lot of stories to tell. There's the labor movement and the mining history. And so it really could fit well with the National Historic Park. One of the requirements that they mentioned in that was that there needs to be design guidelines that show that architectural integrity will be preserved for them to consider that. But having something that, is part of the National Park Service could really help draw a lot of tourists Uptown. You're in the perfect spot. It's already a spot where people stop between Yellowstone and Glacier. So that seems like there could be a lot of benefits to considering that. Continuing to encourage events at locations that showcase the historic features, all of the snow fling events. When people take these pictures, this is marketing for Uptown. So really keep doing that, and even start thinking about, more ways that you can draw people in for events, and drawing younger people and families in is also a great thing for vitality. The last part of the report is an implementation table. So that's chapter 6 of the report. And we know this is the most critical piece of the report, is all of those recommendations that we looked at. We have a description, responsibility, implementation steps, resources needed, schedule, time frame. Overall, the time frame for these projects, there's some that can be done, as soon as practical. But then overall, when you're looking at some of the construction projects or things that need a little more planning and design and then construction, we're looking at the 5 to 10 year time frame. Some of the initial projects that have kind of risen to the top from the community meetings are creating a lighting plan, establishing a public art committee, someone who can help implement murals in public art. We know there's a lot of ideas out there already, so people who can organize that and coordinate with building owners and help look at funding, I think is a way to get those really to be implemented. Looking at the wayfinding and gateways, there's a rewrite of zoning codes coming up next year, and so that could be a time to also incorporate the design guidelines. Establishing the business improvement district, looking at some of the intersections for pedestrian safety, marketing, some of the marketing things with vacant buildings, marketing Uptown as a unique destination. Those are things that can happen right away. Developing the original mine yard into a full-time park. The parks master plan for Butte is a project that's up and coming. And so, making sure that the Uptown piece is considered when we're looking at the whole park system, and that the original mine yard, taking that, another step, and developing the Uptown Core Welcome Center. So those are some of the things that we've heard a lot about in the community meetings. The next steps are, we have the master plan the Draftmaster Plan on the website. It's open for anyone to review. It's set up pretty neat. You should definitely go take a look at it. You can kind of flip through it almost like you're just flipping through a real printed out version. You can turn the pages. It's also separated by chapters, so if you're more interested in one element or the other, you can look at it that way. But we'd really love you to take a good look at that and let us know your comments. We're shooting to have everything, after we get public input, in early December to finalize the master plan by the end of the year and look at a resolution to adopt as part of the comprehensive plan. So that's our goal throughout the rest of the year. The best way for people to review and participate is to go to uptownbuttemasterplan.com, and all of that information is on the home page of the website, and you can comment at any time. And then there's also a few hard copies floating around town, so those will be available as well. With that, I will turn it back over to you for questions.
I'd like to thank Walker and Gabe, but I can't really do that because they can't hear me. So, Director Burns, and thank you, Paul, as well. Are there any questions from the council members on the Uptown Master Plan draft? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Earlier in the meeting tonight at the Budget and Finance Committee, we visited about some studies and things like that. And I think really what the people, the taxpayers of Butte would probably like to know is, I know that we can't have a total over a 5 or 10 year period, but how much money we are in on this project so far with this consult work and with I guess, the beginning of the Uptown revision. Could you help me out there, please?
Director Burns?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw, Commissioner Reardon, and members of council. Our contract with DHM on this project is just under $200,000 for the master plan preparation, and that's been going on for almost 18 months now. So that's that time period. So that's the plan development. That's the only cost we've incurred to date.
Follow up, Commissioner Reardon.
Follow up. With this push for December and all that, over a 5 or 10 year plan, and I guess my major concern is making this area a walking area. I get the shopping, I get this other, what we're trying to do with Uptown and all that. My major concern, as every commissioner in this room can see, is the traffic flow. Basically, we're going to promote business Uptown, which is the plan. but we're going to turn, I noticed on Broadway and all that, it's one-lane traffic with a Sharrow going up. There's a island in the middle of Montana Street. I questioned it at one scenario, and it was said to slow traffic down. I mean, everybody from Butte knows the difficulties during the winter, and it's more winter than summer up here, is the fact that, if I remember correctly, before, this was a plan going across Park Street with these but I think I'm correct that the original highway department, where they involved going to Montana Tech with these islands, or whatever you want to call them, in the middle. I just think that, you know, I'm a Butte guy. Basically, I would say that a lot of this funding and that, maybe there's grants and that, is coming from the Butte people. And I think that, you know, we got to do this by December, we got to do this about that. I like to see improvement, but I think we really got to watch what they're doing and what we're doing and all that. I mean, I've read over this thing 3 or 4 times, been at a couple meetings, and I think that, I'm not trying to start a war here, but I'm just asking my fellow commissioners, and maybe basically, you know, where the costing, keep us up on budgeting and all that. Is there some things in there that don't really promote Butte? And another one that stuck out was the original mine yard. Opening it up to the park, everybody in this room realizes the difficulties that we're having with the Emma Park, which is basically blocks down. And another question is that Butte is a senior citizen community, I would say 50-some%, and we're making in Uptown Butte that you want to draw the business to, that's going to be a walking area. So I think there's a lot of considerations going forward. Yeah, we have 5 or 10 years, but I think we really got to watch how this deal shakes out. And I'm not being derogatory toward or critical, but I think that we got to work as a group here and watch this revision closely, because we want to please the taxpayers of Butte and the people that are paying for this project. Thank you.
Was there a question in there, Commissioner Reardon? Okay. All right. Director Burns, did you have anything to say about any of that before I ask for other questions?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw, and I don't think that there's anything that I need to really respond to. I think that this has been an extreme public process, and with 45 meetings and lots of input from the public. We had more participation in our public meetings than I think anyone could ever say they've had in a public meeting over a plan. We had over 300 participants in our first public meeting about this plan, and heard lots of feedback. And so all of that feedback is incorporated in this. We also did a survey of all the Uptown businesses, and that information is also included in the plan. And so we really feel like this is publicly driven, that we've been listening to what the public wants to see. And this is a visioning document. This is a document about a vision of what we'd like to achieve, but with actionable goals and items. And we are putting budgets to things, but things are not designed fully in this document. So we're not going to get design costs out of this document. For instance, to look at one of those intersections, this document's not going to provide us with what that cost is going to be. That would come later as we moved into implementation. We've had meetings, one-on-one meetings with the Montana Department of Transportation, with their director and Katie Potts, who oversaw that project on Park Street that you're speaking to. We talked to them about our vision of what was in this plan, and did they see any issues with that or problems with that? And the answer was no. They say as long as it's designed to their standards, that things can happen like that. There are communities in the state of Montana that have streets that look like these visions in our plan, and they were done in those Montana cities. We're special and unique in lots of ways, but we deserve the same great things that we can vision in this plan. And I would just encourage us to keep an open mind about the plan in that sense. And when we do adopt something like this, it is that kind of a document. It's a living, breathing vision design document that guides us in implementing things. So that's what that's my response, I guess, to not necessarily a question, but that we continue to work together on these projects, 'as if we try to bring them to fruition.
Okay. Commissioner Frederickson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I kind of hate to do this because I really respect Commissioner Reardon, but I'm going to disagree with him as someone who works uptown or did work uptown and would like to be working uptown soon, hopefully. I would like to see uptown be more walkable and traffic slower. Anytime you're crossing any of the streets on Main Street, you really you might be putting your life in your own hands with the traffic. So I would disagree on some of those statements, and also that I think the Butte's probably going to be getting younger and maybe not necessarily older. And also, just on another comment that you know, our uptown is, we're trying to attract tourists. We're trying to get people to work up there, and so that a big part of that is making it walkable and enjoyable. So, but my question for Director Burns is, it looks like the next steps are public comment, and I've been to a couple of these meetings, and that closes on November 19th, but then what happens after that?
Director Burns?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw, Commissioner Frederickson, and members of council. So once we receive all the comments, we will be revising the plan to reflect those comments with our steering committee and the Uptown Master Plan Planning Committee, and then finalizing a document. And that's the next steps. And then we'll release that document, have another series of public presentations to present the final document. And then we'll move towards adoption by this body, but it's another series of meetings. So by the time we're done, you know, we'll probably have close to 70 meetings under our belt. But that's what this is about. It's about getting the word out and receiving feedback.
Okay. Follow-up, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Burns. Just a quick follow-up on that. So once the final document gets, that's the December timeline, correct? And then, I guess, once we receive the final document, or I guess we don't approve anything like that on council, to approve the plan, right?
Ms. Burns?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw.
The study, so this isn't going to go on a shelf. as
Yeah, right.
Commissioner Fisher likes to say.
So our goal would be to have this plan adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. So once we get through and have a final document, there's a consensus about this final document, we would like to bring it to this body through a resolution to be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan for our city is that living, breathing document that we use that guides us as we make decisions. And we would like this plan to be adopted as part of that, under that umbrella.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Soares, then Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some concerns. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to say anything bad, you know, but, you know, back in 2010, there was a plan down in my neighborhood plan in my neck of the woods, a Greeley plan, and it was supposed to be a 30-year plan. I don't know where that's at. You know, it just kind of got shelved. You know, so I'm really hoping that we can keep our eye on the ball and keep this moving forward, you know, because I haven't, you know, reading through the Greeley plan, there, you know, there's all these ideas, great ideas, just like this one is full of great ideas. So I can really hope we can keep an eye on the ball and keep this moving and not let it fall between the cracks.
Commissioner Fisher, then Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karen, thank you. I, for one, and many others, appreciate all you do for our community, and your input is very valuable. But I think Mr. Reardon had some real valid concerns, you know, and Commissioner Frederickson had concerns, and this is the age difference we have in Butte, you know, young people and then the older people. But besides that point, we've put a lot of money into Uptown Butte, and we've made progress. But I'm a financial watchdog, and when you spend $200,000, and I think we've already, by the check run, spent about $100,000, you know, I hope we're getting what we want for our money. That's all I can say. But with you guiding this, I have faith in it, and I hope it works out good. But there's got to be a medium point between the old and the young in this community. And I think the Uptown plan is a good plan. The 5 or 10 years is different because Commissioner Reardon and I mean, that might be our limit, 10 years, you know? So we hope for the best, but I also like to plan for the worst, and it bothers me sometimes that we get people from bigger cities that come in that don't fully understand Butte the way it is. Butte's totally different. I've seen businesses come and go in here. I've seen people come here and make lots of money. I've seen people come here and go broke. But I appreciate what you do. I hope for the best, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Director Burns, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw and Chairman Shaw, Commissioner Fisher, members of council. Just one point about that, and I know part of this plan, and it's a term that we throw out there called walkability and accessibility. But what that means is we're designing streetscapes that allow people to move better and easier through our streets, no matter their age or ability. So I think we're playing to our older crowd too with some of these improvements, because right now in Uptown Butte, we do have some inaccessible places because of how the curbs are laid out and the streets are laid out. This plan that's what we're trying to address here as well. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill, and then Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Seriously, I went over the master plan. Thank you, everybody presented, and thank you, Karen, for working on this hard. And I get it that we keep going on this 200 grand that's spent on it. It came out of a grant. It's for economic development. Everybody in this room here goes out of town to other places and sees the beauty, and everybody's like, oh gosh, I wish we had that in Butte. Well, listen, you have to have a plan about this, okay? You have to plan forward. If we keep going on the way we're going, look what we have, you guys. This is what we have. So we have to have a plan to go forward, okay? It has to be that way. Butte were the worst people in the whole country about change. I don't like it either. There's a lot of, even I can go on a lot of them things that drive me crazy and think about that, but we got to keep an open mind and be very positive about it. The draft isn't in, we don't get the draft in December and then we don't start building the stuff in the spring. That's not the thing either, but we need a plan. We need every other, like Missoula, down by Karis Park. Trust me, they sat around and all that stuff and they had a plan to do that. If anybody's ever been there and enjoyed that, it's fantastic, you guys, and everybody's happy and smiling. That's our goal here, is to be that. So as the leaders of our community, we need to support these things and not be negative about it, because we're supposed to be the leaders, okay? We're supposed to drive this stuff, okay? That's all I can say. In no disrespect on any of your guys' opinions, I love you all very much, but we're the leaders. Keep it rocking, again. And we're not opening the park to the one park. We can't open that up to the public, okay? That's my negative part of that. That ain't happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. And coming from a Flatlander, I really appreciate the support of an Uptown girl, so. Anyway, thank you. So Karen, I had a question, and I'm looking at your implementation table on page 164, and it is to establish an Uptown Master Plan implementation team, and your goal is to have it established by the fall of this year. And it says a group of people from BSB and Uptown Master Plan Association, that's the group that's already brought this forward, and the Main Street and other organizations. So can you just give me a little bit of an idea what that implementation team plans to do from the start before you even have this approved? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Cha, members of council. Obviously that's a draft implementation table, so fall of 2021 was pretty ambitious since we are in fall of 2021. So I think that you would see that pushed out just a little bit more. But that implementation team would be basically the steering committee from the group that has been driving this plan. And then we would look at our goals, our objectives, and assign those to folks to start carrying out. A lot of the low-hanging fruit, the things that we can do organizationally that don't require funding sources, that don't require professional services to design and draw out and get bidding documents, but those things that we can start doing right of way. And so that's what that implementation team would do.
Okay, and then I just wondered, once you have that, I assume you will keep us apprised of all the thoughts and the things that are going on, that even the little things that you say are not requiring any financial support.
Right.
That we just, because we don't know what's happening half the time anyway, but that would be very nice. And I also want to thank Paul and everybody else that I can't say hello to, that this is great. I mean, the great part is that it's coming before us.
Yeah.
And it needs to be talked about, and I think we're on the cusp. I go to all the URA board meetings, and yesterday morning, I think 6 out of the 7 were in my district here in Uptown. And it's so encouraging and enlightening to see people investing in their buildings and coming to Butte. So I think Karen will agree without telling us all the secrets, that we are on the cusp of something big in Butte, and I would love to see Butte at least clean up our gateways, number one. You know, the first impressions, I think that's something that doesn't going to cost any money, but it can require some work and some volunteer work. Just starting at the very beginning like that is going to be awesome, and it'll just snowball. So thanks again for the presentation. There's some good reading here, and we'll look forward to, will there be another update before the final?
Yes, Chairman Shaw, there'll be another update before the final, and I will make this offer to you now. As we move forward with our implementation team, we may reach out to all of you to participate. So, thank you.
Okay, don't make eye contact now. Thank you so much, Karen. Paul, thank you for coming tonight, and the other group, just give them my thanks as well. Thank you. Okay, moving on. I can see what I'm doing here. Item 2 is communication number 2021-505. Ed Randall, Community Enrichment Director, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence for time on the October 27th, 2021 Council agenda for a presentation on Butte-Silver Junk Motor Vehicle Program. Director Randall.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ed Randall, and I'm the Director of the Community Enrichment Department for Butte-Silver. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. May I pass a couple things out?
You certainly may.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've just passed some things out. I'll explain them as we go. I did pass out some files for the work that we do for JMV. And so when everyone gets the stuff, we'll...
So Ed, is it just the 2 pieces?
No, there's one more,
there's one
Madam
more. Oh,
Chair.
okay.
And then there's files that I just want people to glance out and see the work that our staff does daily. Would you like me to proceed, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The last couple months, there's been some confusion on the difference between abandoned vehicles, junk motor vehicles, and parking enforcement and things like that. So I was speaking to the chief executive and the budget director, and they thought it was appropriate that I come and do a presentation. And I know that your time is valuable. I'm not going to take a lot of your time, and I'm certainly not going to throw a lot of numbers at you. I just wanted to explain a brief history of the program, and then I'll talk about what we're doing today. So when I started in government many, many years ago, this is where I started. And, you know, Dan Dennehy was the health officer at that time, and he would have Dan Powers drop several of us off in blocks, and we would just walk down the streets and tag vehicles, and a couple days later, we would pull them. And we were pulling, you know, 750, 800 vehicles a year, sometimes more. So as technology's changed and people's rights have changed, and people know their rights more, and governments improved how they do things, our policies and procedures changed. And so in about 2008 or 2009, the price of metal dropped. So when the price of metal dropped, we weren't taking as many JMVs. People were keeping their vehicles, they were, you know, doing doing different things with them, and not only because of the price of metals dropped, but there was an economic downturn in our community around the United States. So people were repairing their vehicles. If they were broke, they were putting them away appropriately, and it got a lot better that way. So about 10 years ago, we were having problems. We have a space at the landfill, and it's a large space, and it's where we used to keep our junk motor vehicles. We would tag them, our two vendors would pull them, and they would bring them out to the landfill. Well, in speaking with the county attorney's office at that time, we had a lot of liability because it was getting broken into every day. People were stealing the catalytic converters. They were, you name it, they were taking anything that had value. So myself and Dan Powers went to the DEQ and said, this just isn't working for our community. Can we change things? And this is, the way we were doing it is how the whole state did it. That was the program. And so we got creative. We partnered with another vendor, Pacific, here in town, and said, if we tag them and pull them and rework our enforcement, we would like to bring them right to Pacific and have them crushed. The liabilities off Butte-Silver Bowl of storing them and having someone injured, believe it or not, when they break into our facility and steal our stuff. And it was a better use for us. So we did that. We worked about 1.5 years with the legislature and with the DEQ, and we got that passed. So we started doing that. Now, I've heard a lot tonight also, and I'll go into that, but when we take a junk motor vehicle, there's more to it than we think, and we'll go through that. We are funded by the DEQ. We receive $1 for every license plate or every vehicle that's registered. On average, we take between 450 and 600 vehicles a year, which is a lot. So far to date, I believe that we have tagged 80 vehicles. We've pulled another 37, and that means when we contact the folks or we go to Commissioner Thatcher's house and say, oh, you have a JMV, we got a complaint, which we're complaint driven, we'd like to tag it, and Commissioner Thatcher may say, oh, Mr. Randall, just take it. And so we get the registration and we can have her sign a thing and we can just take it. And so that's where we got another 37. So we're budgeted to tow probably, we think about 150 vehicles this year, which we'll hit, we always do. We'll take between 450 and 550, which is in our performance budget, and we usually hit it, except for when COVID hit and we were working with the health department. We've taken 350 plus calls so far this year on JMV, just on JMV alone. Last year we towed 156 plus 3 mobile homes, which was a new test program for the DEQ to see if we could use JMV funds to do mobile homes, and we'll see if that continues. I don't believe it will. The JMV program also licenses our salvage yards. I didn't know if you guys knew that, but we do. We're in charge of that. As we've progressed and as we've seen different needs from the community and specifically COVID, how people have, I think, expected more from government, we're trying to improve how we do things. We're trying to understand people's financial situations. We're trying to improve how we do things and getting our information out by being in the media a lot. We're improving our webpage with Mr. Parrish right here, as a matter of fact, and it's been a good change for us. So let's talk about the difference. This discussion was just for JMV, so I'm going to keep it on there, but I'm going to really distinguish the difference between an abandoned vehicle and a junk motor vehicle. So the information I gave you, the information I passed out, first of all, those files, I just wanted everyone to glance at them and see the work that our team does. Now, if you're asking who prepares all this stuff, Cindy Winston is, she directs all the internal programs that we have. In other words, she works directly for me. She runs the staff. So she's the one that takes care of the files, audits files, makes sure everything's correct before it goes to the county attorney or whatever we need the files to go to. A JMV is a vehicle that it is wrecked, ruined, dismantled, and is not registered. Now, if you have a license plate, a lifetime license plate, and the vehicle matches or meets the other criteria of wrecked, ruined, and dismantled, it's a JMV. Under 500, the value of 500 or less. So an abandoned vehicle can be worth anything, and it can just sit there, and so when you think about, let's think about what I said, wrecked, ruined, or dismantled, unable to be driven, and not licensed. So, and with a $500 value or less. That really brings us from, these vehicles here all the way down here. Now, a lot of people and a lot of commissioners and a lot of the community really think that, how many did you tow? How many did you tow? I would prefer that we towed none. I would prefer that everyone came and got a license plate. We got the vehicles back registered. We got them back getting gas, paying those taxes. That's the win. That's the win. Or if they're just too beat up, they can surely shield them. As long as we don't see anything from 6 feet to the midline in the middle of the road to the property, people can shield their vehicles legally, and they should. I mean, it's private property. They should have that right. Now, an abandoned vehicle is just different. Again, it's something that's been left there. It could be a Cadillac Escalade. It's been there for 2-3 weeks. Someone finds it, and, we take care of that. Now, I know that Sheriff Lester had a discussion about this a few weeks ago, and, I've got to take some responsibility for that. We're in the process of well, first of all, we work very closely with the Abandoned Vehicle Program, and as a matter of fact, we're in the process of taking that program. We just happened to take parking enforcement first, and we couldn't do it all at once. So we're going to do that. Now, I heard one of our citizens talk today, and I do need to clear some things up. The gentleman that she talked to at DEQ is the right man, but I think that the JMV and abandoned vehicle issues got mixed up. So an abandoned vehicle can be over 500. There's no value on that. A JMV has to be 500 and under. It has to meet all the other criteria. And we charge, or we pay a fee of $100 per JMV. Now, abandoned vehicles, the police department pays a $125 fee for abandoned vehicles. So when we have people calling our vendors, I'm going to have to call this gentleman tomorrow, our vendors, and say, you're not getting taken advantage of by Butte-Silver, I promise you. Whoever was talking with you got a little bit confused. And we have to have good relationships with our vendors, and they have to believe in us, and this type of thing flusters that, and then it fuddles it, and we can't have that. All you have to do is call. I know that we've had a commissioner or two ask about our budget. Just call us. We'll explain it. It's in the book, and we have a performance budget, and we're doing the best we can. We're taking as many vehicles as we can. We're pulling as many as we can. If you have questions or concerns, please call us and we'll explain it. It seems simple, but it's not as simple as one thinks, and there's a ton of paperwork. So this is how it works. Let's say that Commissioner Thatcher sees a vehicle on the side of the road, and so she'll call parking probably, let's say, or us. Well, if we go look at it and we'll say, well, I don't know, let's get it to parking, and that's where it should start. They'll ticket it. They'll wait there a couple days, few days. They'll ticket it again, which is what they should do. Let's not get extreme. When nothing's happening, they say, well, it does kind of meet the criteria of a JMV. Would you guys go assess it again? So we'll send someone out. Cindy Winston will send someone out. They'll go look at it, and they'll say, yeah, it's a JMV, and we'll tag it as a JMV. Then once they do that, we send letters, and we do all kinds of things to try to ensure that the folks know what we're doing. Or Cindy will say, it's not a JMV either. Let's get the police involved, and we call the police, and the police will come out, and then they start their process. Now, I know processes are frustrating. I get it. But people have rights, and we strongly believe in those rights. And I think that if I took Eric, or Commissioner Mankin's vehicle, and he wasn't aware of it, and it was sitting at, he didn't know it was tagged or something, he would probably be upset with us. And so that's why we go the extra steps to ensure that someone may or may not know, or does know, what we're doing out there. I think we owe that to the community. We want to be a kind government. We want to be a government that works with our citizens, and that's what we try to do. So, does anyone have any questions on what we do? I did give you guys what is a Montana vehicle law, and then it has questions that are asked constantly by us, by the DEQ, and so please read it. It really helps. And if you commissioners are getting calls, listen, I know that we get a lot of emails saying my constituents are concerned. That's fine, but just if you have a question that this sheet doesn't answer, call us. We'll answer for you. You can pass it on. We just want to make sure that everyone's getting the right information, because when we go to a property and we can't tag the vehicle because it's not a JMV, and then we get the police involved and there's a long process, people start getting mad and, well, I was told this or I was told that. Well, sometimes that's just not how it works. And again, they're long processes. They are, and they're meant to be. So I would be more than willing to answer any questions. If you guys have any questions for us, again, just look in the budget book or call me, and we can discuss it. If you want to look at our performance budget, it has our past history, everything we've done, and what we do now. And Madam Chair, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and I appreciate you guys, and I know that it's tough work, but, we're there. We're out there doing it every day. Oh, and those files are just like I said, the paperwork that we do, there's a lot to it. So I just wanted to pass those files around.
Thank you, Director Randall, and I see that Commissioner Reardon has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming. I'm going to refer to you as Ed. That's what I've been talking to you about. First of all, I think that you got your hands full, and that's acknowledged by everybody in this room. I guess I'll start out with question number one is, do you feel that you have enough staffing to handle the situation that you're in now? I mean, of towing vehicles, you know more than anybody, and everybody in this room knows that we have some areas that are starting to be developed that are not in good shape. And I am going to start out with that question. Okay. I got a couple too. Do you think you have enough people and monies to do the job that's required for the next fiscal year? Thank you.
Director Randall, please.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reardon, I think that as far as this fiscal year, I think that we're very strong in our budget. We're pretty frugal staff, to be real honest with you, and I appreciate your acknowledgement that our gang, they're incredibly busy. Right. They wear many different hats. Just like any department, it would be a shame if I didn't cry that I needed 5 more staff. Okay. But I can tell you that in the next budget cycle, we are going to be asking for staff. And not because we've grown, but because our job has become even more important. We see a lot of development in Butte-Silver. And I work closely with Karen Burns, the Community Development Director. And one of the big issues is community enrichment. Not that they're not doing, or not that I'm not doing my job, but that people are expecting more and more, and they should. Land values have increased tremendously. Properties are being sold. People are looking at our town. And so could we use some help? Absolutely. But so can everyone else, and I respect and understand that. This year, we're great. We're doing really well. Thank you, Commissioner.
Follow up, Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, there's a couple scenarios I want to ask you about. It seems to me, or I know it's for sure, is there was a procedure that the last time you visited us for calling in a vehicle and all that. And it was my understanding that basically the constituent calls in, basically reports the vehicle, and then we were to call as a commissioner to verify the scenario. And then along with this procedure, we were told that on a computer, on our council computer, there would be a acknowledgement of the procedure of where this was going. And the reason I'm asking you that is that probably 4 or 5 commissioners, I don't really know if it's our job, but I don't mind. That's all about Butte and getting things done for our people, is the fact that I don't think we have a procedure for these people to really look at, with your handout. And I know, and I mean, I'm not complaining, but I would say on average, I usually answer 8 to 15 phone calls a week, basically about garbage or vehicles and things like that. And I'm not being critical here again, but my newest one is we had a car that had been tagged for over a period of 3 weeks, and Commissioner Shaw and all that were doing some other business, and that tag was still present in the vehicle, and the time had expired basically by almost a week or 10 days. So I just stopped and said, hey, that sticker is going to be towed and all that. Well, it never was towed, so I finally talked them into pushing it into their yard anyway. And I mean, this is a junk vehicle. And I'm not being critical of anybody over one vehicle, but I think everybody in this room, from Josh O'Neill's dealing with it, Eric Matkins is dealing with it. And as I was sitting here listening, I think, with this information that you handed out to us, might be the best help would be Chief Executive Gallagher's letter in the Water Department, where basically, if you have a question regarding the vehicle, but basically is the procedure. And I want to know what is the procedure, because do they call their commissioner first? I was down in the office, the council office secretary and all that, and she received two phone calls on junk vehicles. And I'm not saying being critical of anything and all that, but it just seems like there's not really a procedure that people can count on, so then we get another phone call. And I think that's the frustration, not only for the people that are pursuing this, but also of every commissioner in this room. And that's what I'm asking you, please, for me anyway, is a procedure where basically we know if we field these phone calls, how they should be directed. And that's being helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you,
Director Randall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. I guess the best, we've stated always that if folks are going to call you, please have them call us, but if they don't want to, I respect that. Give us the information, and we'll surely take care of it. Now, if you're talking about a vehicle that's been tagged for 2 or 3 weeks, that's not an issue for us, Commissioner Reardon. Sometimes it takes longer than that. We send letters out. There's a lot to it. We just don't do it like in the old days where we tag them. As soon as 3 or 4 days is taken, boom, we pull them. We don't do things that way, nor can we do things. So maybe it's a good idea, Commissioner, that I do an article in the Montana Standard explaining some of these things, and maybe that would help, and I'd love to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. And I think that'll really help everybody out, not only the citizens, but also everybody that's sitting around in this room.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sorge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ed, I got if you could just maybe expand on a little bit. Do I need to obtain a motor vehicle wrecking facility license for my own junk vehicles? In my neck of the woods, I've got quite a few of those.
Okay.
Okay, so is there anybody else that can enforce that, or what is that? Who would you have to get the license from? I've heard you need to have a permit from the DEQ, or it has to be researched from or it has to be reviewed by the DEQ if you have more than four vehicles in your yard, or is that, can they enforce that, or do you enforce that, or what's the fine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I?
Could you expound on that a little bit?
On a junk vehicle?
Having more than 4 vehicles in your yard.
Okay, well, it depends, and I can't go into specifics because I don't know that I've been to the yard or not. Properties can have vehicles in their yards. Now, sometimes we can move from a JMV issue to a community decay issue because of public nuisance issues, or just decay. So I would like to talk to you about it. If someone does want to open up a salvage yard, they have to contact the DEQ, and good luck, because you're just not going to get one. So if they're dealing in parts, that's another issue, or if they are a mechanic shop, we do that. We do that zoning enforcement. That's what my department does. So I could have a talk with you about it, and then maybe you and I can meet out there.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shea?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Randall, for being here tonight. Thank you to all the members of the public coming to speak tonight. Would you mind, it might be better for Sheriff Lester, the two of you together, to just kind of go through step by step the life of a vehicle that needs to be towed and kind of speak to the processes around the rotation calls?
Okay,
Thank you.
Sheriff Lester,
I can answer it.
you want to take that?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. We got a couple of microphones. So.
Commissioner Shea, so, you know, I'll take you through the steps, and I thought I did, but let me do it again real quick. Let's say that you call Commissioner Shea and you say, I have a vehicle. Well, one of our staff will go out. If we think it's not a JMV or it's close, we'll refer it to parking, which is in our division now. So we'll refer it to parking. They'll go mark it. If it's, let's say it doesn't have license plates or it's not registered, they'll surely give it a ticket for that. Then they go through that process, and it could be a few days. We might wait and give it another ticket. If it's parked on the streets once we've, you know, tagged and seen and you know, assessed where it's been the last few days. If no one gets it, we'll go back out and look and see if it really does meet the JMV or it's close, then we will tag it, then we'll go through that process. We will tag it as a JMV. We will send the certified letters. We will do everything. We take pictures of inside and out because too many times now folks have said, well, you take my vehicle, but I had a brand new motor in the back of it that was a Porsche motor. And so we take several pictures of each vehicle. We send that along with the letters. We take care of all those issues. And then if we get the letters back in time, let's say it's 6-7 days, then we'll pull it. If we get a letter after 14, 15, 18 days that they haven't signed for it, then we'll pull it. Now, let's say that we go there after parking was there and we say, gosh, it's just not a JMV, it's just not a junk, it's not wrecked, ruined, or dismantled, it's not a component part, and it doesn't run, I don't know that it meets those, then we'll send it to the abandoned vehicle to the police department. The police department will come look at it. Do you want to go or do you want me to? You're on a roll. Oh, I'm good. So then they'll put their notice on it, and I believe that they try to let it sit there at least a week to see if someone comes and picks it up. And if they don't, then they will pull the vehicle. And we've been working with the police the last few weeks. The yard's completely empty. We've been, you know, pulling the vehicles and working with the undersheriff incredibly close. So that's the process. And again, it can be time consuming, but it should be. I mean, these are people's vehicles and it's their property. You know, so that's what we do.
Follow-up, Commissioner Shea?
Thank you.
Or, excuse me, Commissioner Shea, or if we went to your house, I apologize, and you said, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was upsetting people, you can sign it over to us, and then we can take it that day. And we use two vendors. We use GTR, I believe that's GTR and Red Wrecker. Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Shea, follow-up?
Okay. Yes, so I understand that I looked through those and I can see that there's two wrecker companies that are on there. Right. I understand how this works because my husband used to drive a wrecker. Okay. So what I want you to do is, not you or maybe Sheriff Lester, somebody, explain it to the folks who are here so that they can really understand how a rotation call goes out, what happens if the person that's called doesn't answer it, how do other companies get on the rotation list, all of that kind of stuff, because it sounded to me like there's some suspicion that there might be some wrongdoing in Butte-Silver, and I don't think that's true. It felt like there might be some distrust there, and I just want to be able to hear exactly what it is, so everybody gets on the same page, everybody knows what to expect, and if people think that they're not being treated fairly, if they belong to this wrecking association, and they feel like they're not being treated fairly, I mean, I would certainly like to see them up here advocating for themselves, but they could certainly, hear it straight from you right now.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Shea, I guess I wasn't unaware that people thought maybe there was some shady dealings going on. So there's not. The Tow Association, I believe in 2015 or 16, wanted an increase in their in their tow fee, and we did that. We brought ours to, I believe, $75 to $100. No one's ever come to us and asked to be on our tow list. That association brought those two places, or those two businesses to us, and that's who we use. We use one today, the next one tomorrow. Or if we have two today, we split them up. I guess I'm a little bit taken back. I think maybe with some of the communication that's been going on in the community and talking to these people, that they think that we're not doing the right thing, which I will fix tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. There's been some miscommunication, and I'm always going to be honest. And I wish that would have been brought to me instead of my vendors. But there is, we give one time, one the next. And we just go back and forth, back and forth. I know that the police department does that also, the same exact thing. They have a list and they go one after the other.
Yeah, we go down the rotation list.
Lester.
Thank you, Madam Chair, sorry. We go down the same rotation list. If we get, sometimes we get records that won't respond. Sometimes they don't want to, they don't have a record available, so that's how it works. But they get paid what they invoice us. In the 8 years that I've been the sheriff, Dave McPherson has met with the Towing Association once a month. Never heard a complaint from the Towing Association. They worked closely with the undersheriff until his retirement, and now they work with Captain Mark St. Pierre. I've never heard a complaint about anybody getting paid or not getting paid what they felt they deserved. So this is new to me, and I'd love to hear it from them, but I've not heard any complaints, and we meet with them at least once a month with our 911 coordinator. So if there is some kind of a complaint, that's probably the forum that they should let Dave McPherson know.
Commissioner Shea and I would agree that, we're with our vendors almost daily. We actually hand deliver our slips, and we've never heard anything. We pay on time, as Director Gleason will tell you, or we would hear it from her. And, we're good at that. And we have an incredible relationship with both our vendors, and we've just not had an issue. So again, I was surprised. So, thank you, ma'am.
Follow-up, Commissioner Shea?
I promise this is my last follow-up, thank you.
Okay, we'll let you.
If another vendor wanted to be called, how would they get on the list or
Thank you.
onto that rotation? Thank you.
Director Randall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Shea. I think that they could come talk to us, and then, again, I think that they would go through their group that they have, the Towing Association, if they're involved in that, because that's who has the contract, and we go through there. But, but, I will say that before GTR became GTR, the business before that, we've had this contract with those two vendors now for 25 years that I've been personally just been towing vehicles. So, again, and we've never had a complaint, never had a non-payment. When they've brought up an increase in their tow fees, we've always discussed it with them and let their organization bring it to us. And I don't know that we've ever said no. Thank you, Commissioner Shea.
Ed, just one more question for you. Obviously, everybody in this room has a copy of what was presented, and you said you were using, this is again for vendors, you said you've been working exclusively with two vendors, and the material that was furnished as you passed out as requested by some of the constituents lists 5 people.
Thank you.
And could you explain that, please? And then I'm done too. Thanks.
Okay.
Director Randall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Reardon, I apologize. Director Gleason was kind enough to do some research for me and take care of some stuff. So last fiscal year, this is for JMVs and abandoned vehicles. So we use Red Wrecker and GTR. I know that our police department uses more vendors. They need more, and they also need 24-hour and things like that. So the wreckers are, so on this, we have Red Wrecker Service. They did 92 units for us. GTR did 54. Baker Auto did 16 units. I-90 Auto Salvage Sales and Towing did 23 units, and Interstate Body Shop did 24 units. Now, you may say, why is Red Wrecker the most? Well, they're on call 24 hours, and the only time we would use Red Wrecker if GTR said, is if they said no to us, if it was their turn. Yeah. Are you really done? Okay.
Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a gentleman in the audience with the black hat.
I'm sorry?
There's a gentleman in the audience with the black hat that had his hand raised. Would it be okay if he asked a question?
I don't know. Look at my vice chair. I believe that person could probably speak to the individuals at a different time. I don't know. I guess we could kind of bend the rules, and if there's something, if there's an opportunity to make a comment, I don't believe that we can have a dialogue or any kind of, anything like that, to be honest. I don't think that would be a correct thing to do. But thank you, sir, for coming, and I'm sure that you can contact, we just have kind of rules of order here, and I just didn't want to break those rules, so thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, Sheriff Lester.
If I turn my microphone back on.
Here you go.
Those 5 records are also the records that are, if you see an accident on Harrison Avenue or at some track crash scene on the interstate or whatever, those are the 5 records that are on our rotation list to come and clear the interstate or tow. Some of them have actual large records for semis or whatever, but that's the wrecker group we currently go by, and that's with the towing association. So if we were to call GTR or Baker and they weren't able to take whatever the situation was, then we'd move on to the next one who had one or was available. So that's how the rotation works. But those records are the 5 we currently work on: traffic crashes and clearing hazardous situations, those kind of things.
And again, Madam Chair, we only use the first 2. The Community Enrichment Department uses Red Wrecker and GTR.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I have a question for you, Ed. So,
Yes, ma'am.
or not even a clarification, when we talked about how to make our case for our constituent. Sometimes they don't want to be recognized
Sure.
for whatever reason. So I always email.
Yes.
And to me, it's a great tracking way of keeping track of all the different things that we do. And I especially appreciate Cindy Winston. She always answers my emails. She
She's
tells me,
wonderful.
sometimes
Yeah.
she'll tell me, well, it's already in your system.
Right.
I don't know that.
Right.
And I hope that that's, understood, that I don't know until I really contact you folks. But wasn't there something that we were talking about, some software at one time that your department was going to come up with something where you could keep a record and that those records could be looked at? Maybe it was just within your own organization to see the tracking of the process that's going on for a certain item. Is that available to internally, let's say intranet or whatever, to commissioners to kind of keep an eye on what we've been asking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I believe. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
We don't have anything yet. I think there is a program, and then I'm not certain that who is going to have access to it. I know that Commissioner Shaw emails us a lot. She has her own file. So, and we do respond, and she's takes care of her area. So, we don't have anything yet.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions from any commissioners? All right, well, thank you very much for coming, Ed. And
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
To answer these questions is invaluable, honestly.
I think so.
So I appreciate that very much. And also Sheriff Lester, thank you as well. Okay, moving on to our agenda. And this shouldn't take too long, so here we go. Section 2, Communication 1, number 2021-131, Ed Lester, Butte-Silver Sheriff, requesting Council of Commissioners a concurrence and authorization for the Chief Executive to sign the MOU between Butte-Silver and the Southwest Montana Drug Task Force. Sheriff Lester told me that he is still awaiting a meeting with some more information about that MOU, so we'll continue to hold that in advance. Item 2, Communication 2021-299, Tristan Thomas, residing in Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners to authorize Tristan Thomas to purchase the following property located at 2422 Pine Street, Butte, Montana. If you recall, we are awaiting a survey on that particular item, and as soon as that comes through, we will be able to I'm assuming it'll go to land sales and they'll come back with their recommendation. At this time, we'll hold that in abeyance. Item 3 is communication number 2021-335, Michael and Kellyanne Hoven, 241 Williams Street, Walkerville, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to purchase vacant land currently owned by Butte-Silver. The land we are hoping to acquire includes 1.06 acre parcel and a segment of another 10 acre tract. This is also awaiting a survey with the same circumstances as the previous land purchaser, potential land purchaser, so we will hold this in abeyance till that survey results. Item 4 is communication number 2021-355, Hannah Van Wetter, Foothold co-founder, CEO, requesting Council Commissioners' consideration to sell the city-county vacant lot at the corner of 350 East Granite Street, legally described as Thornton Addition, South 13, Township 3 North, Range 8 West, Block 3, Lot 12, Moonlight Addition, with 10 feet of Lot 1, Block 7. And we did get a communication with a recommendation from our Land Sales Department, so I will defer to my Vice Chair, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to point out that it's communication 2021-355, or 351, sorry. You said
351,
355.
excuse me, thank you,
Yeah,
351.
I move to cross-reference communication 2021-351 with communication 2021-522 and place on file.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to cross-reference communication 2021-351 with communication 2021-522 and place this on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? And would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Communication number 2021-446, Charlie Brown, 10 North Dixon Street, Anaconda, Montana, requesting Council Commissioners' approval to purchase land located on the 800 to 900 block of North Idaho Street. I would have it surveyed and then have it legally described as within the boundaries of the Raven Addition. I would pay for the survey and the market value of the land to build a single-family residence. We also last week received a recommendation from the Land Sales Committee. So Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to cross-reference communication 2021-466 with communication 2021-523 and place on file.
Is it 4466 or 446?
446, excuse me.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? I have a motion and a second to cross-reference 2021-446 with communication 2021-523 and place this on file. Is there anything on the question? Could everyone please vote? And would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. Item 6, communication number 2021-504. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council Commissioners' concurrence for time on the October 27th, 2021 Council meeting to present information on the Uptown Master Plan. We just had that the presentation, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication 2021-405 on file.
Second.
504?
What did I say? Sorry.
This is a tough night tonight. You're just keeping me on track here, mister. We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-504 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? The clerk please record the vote. No pressure.
I know.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item 7, communication number 2021-505. Ed Randall, Community Enrichment Director, requesting Council Commissioners' concurrence for time on the October 27th, 2021 Council agenda for a presentation on Butte-Silver Junk Motor Vehicle Program. We just received that presentation, so Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place communication 2021-505 on file.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-505 on file. Would everyone please vote? Would anyone care to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Motion passes. Item 8, Communication 2021-510. Jenny Chambers, DEQ Waste Management and Remediation Division Administrator, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for time on the agenda for the DEQ Project Officer Dave Bowers to discuss the upcoming construction of the Montana Pole and Treatment Plant Superfund site, to discuss activities and answer questions that the commissioners may have. We moved that to November 3rd, so we'll be having that presentation next week. So we will continue to hold that in abeyance. Item 9, Communication number 2021-518. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening for November 3rd, 2021 for the 2021 Metro dump truck. We will hold that in abeyance till next Wednesday, the 3rd. And the last item is item 10, Communication number 2021-519. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening for November 3rd, 2021 for the 2021 Roads dump truck, and that will be held in abeyance. So at this time, I'd ask for any public comment on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda. Anything not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I would ask for anything else to come before us tonight. Commissioner Shea and Commissioner Anderson? Go ahead, Commissioner Anderson.
Judiciary will be reconvening.
That's right.
To finish up
Okay, thank you,
immediately following.
Judiciary Chair, I appreciate that. And otherwise, the rest of us, I would, excuse me, Commissioner Shea.
We will also be scheduling another Personnel Committee meeting next week. I just wanted to get that on everybody's radar. We weren't able to finish tonight.
You're going to, I'm sorry, what?
Schedule another Personnel Committee
Gotcha.
meeting.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.